Good evening and welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. So the Braves had a split squad affair yesterday, winning both games. And the one takeaway I took away, actually, I'll start with the biggest takeaway because I thought Ronaldo Lopez looked great. But Alex, and I think you'll love this one because you're so high on Spencer Schwellenbach. You've been talking about this kid. I think everybody who's watched him is excited about what he can do in year two as long as he stays healthy. I was so impressed seeing his numbers that he was hitting on the radar gun and the movement that he was showing. Keep in mind, these guys usually take 3 months off or so. Sometimes they don't, but in the offseason, and it takes a little while to ramp back up. You're not usually coming back and you're slinging 96, 97, or it takes you, 4 or 5 starts to get back up there. This guy's velocities across the board in his first start were higher than they were last year. The movements were better. The Stuff Plus, which is an advanced analytic tool that basically measures how good stuff is just based on the movement and the velocity, was above all of his stuff from last year. And he was out there throwing 6 pitches already. So for a first start, him already looking how he ended last year when he was one of the better pitchers, I don't know how you can't be thrilled with what you saw.
I mean, this guy, I think I might have been underselling him. Maybe not. I said Max Fried's going to sting a little bit, but Schwellenbach's going to help that. Like, it's going to lessen the sting. He's going to be a frontline guy. He could be the Braves' best pitcher. And I think, obviously you've got 2 other guys who you probably bet on more so than him, and Chris Sale and Spencer Strider. But I don't think anybody should be really shocked if this guy comes out and is the best Braves pitcher in 2025. He was throwing like a 96-mile-an-hour cutter. That's insane. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that like Cy Young. 6 pitches. He limits hard hit. He doesn't walk a ton. He can punch guys out. He's already showing the kind of repertoire that kind of, veterans have, where you're approaching different situations where, you don't need to get a strikeout. You just need to let your defense play behind you, sort of a thing. And he showed that at the end of last season. He's already picking up on like the nuances of pitching that, sometimes it takes some guys 4 or 5 years to pick up, while also having, people tell him those sort of things. He's already picking up on it. The sky is the limit for Spencer Schwellenbach. I mean, if you want to talk about an extension candidate upcoming, that's the guy more than anybody right now. I mean, nobody should be surprised. He comes out, earns a first All-Star bid, a couple weeks later, signs an extension.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously they're from different sides, but he kind of reminds me of Max Fried. Just an absolute bulldog on the mound, very poised, attacks hitters, doesn't walk guys, has a repertoire of pitches that just seems to just get bigger every single offseason. Nobody's surprised if 2-3 years from now he's got 8 pitches and he's just using them all because he's developed so many pitches over the last several years. It's like he's way advanced from where Max Fried was at this point, but it's not this super high strikeout guy, even though I think he's a little bit better of a strikeout guy than Max Fried, but it's the repertoire, it's the poise, it's the not walking guys, it's the understanding, it's the fearlessness in big moments that we saw at the end of last season. And I'm with you, man. It wouldn't shock me at all. Spencer Schwellenbach, God forbid, I say this about every pitcher, but it's just like health is so dependent, especially for young arms, that he can have a full season, because I think it's going to be another situation where we're just blessed to watch this guy every 5th day. And if we can get 30 starts out of him, I can't wait to see what kind of numbers. I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all if it's a 3-headed monster and it's kind of a race where all these guys are competing with each other at the top of that Braves rotation for who's the best guy. And having all 3 of them, if they can stay healthy, it's what makes you really confident about this rotation, no matter what happens with the other guys.
He's never pitched a full season worth of innings. So while that is kind of maybe in the back of your mind concerning wise, fatigue wise, on the flip side of things, the guy hasn't pitched at all. Like, in terms of what a lot of guys his age at this point in their careers, like if you had the same pitcher who was 24 years old or however old he is, and he's gone through college and he's at this point where he's entering his 2nd pro season, he hasn't pitched a lick compared to a lot of guys, which could be seen as a positive that he's, like you said, in terms of Max Fried, he's already further along in terms of the experience. And while it is concerning to a certain extent in terms of durability, you can look at it on the flip side and be like, wow, he's only scratching the surface.
Yeah. I mean, especially when he's coming into camp looking like a better version of himself after one start. I mean, let's just imagine for a second here that he's still ramping up. Like he's already where he was in terms of his stuff at the end of last season, and he's still ramping up. I mean, he's still got 4 or 5 more starts before the beginning of this season, and who the hell knows what he's going to look like. I mean, what if that fastball is 97, 98 by the end of spring training, and that cutter's 96, and that sinker's 95? I mean,
that's Paul Skeens stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, I wouldn't go there.
Skeens is a little faster. He's a little harder, but I'm talking about 5 pitches, can throw them all hard, can throw them a lot. I mean,
yeah, I mean, the stuff and the variety of stuff and his willingness to throw them all. I mean, this is a guy who was using all of his pitches. He was throwing 6 pitches above 10% of the time last year. Like, it's a lot of guys have 6 pitches, but 3 of them are used at a 5% or less rate. Like, Spencer Schwellenbach has a clear plan, whether he's facing a righty or a lefty, and what he likes to use, and he attacks those guys with that plan. And that's why he kind of reminds me of a Max Fried. But like you said, so much further along. A couple other things. Obviously, we mentioned, Ronaldo Lopez looked very, very crisp. I mean, very, very exciting to see him in his first start, 2 scoreless innings. The other big takeaway I had from yesterday, outside of Marcell Ozuna, I mean, come on, the guy just hits homers. That's all he does. Another homer, his first homer of the spring, was these bullpen arms, particularly in the one split game. You got Diekman, Perdomo. I mean, there's going to be some names I missed, but everyone pitched well on the Braves yesterday, and a lot of them were guys battling for that spot. And if you're the Braves, where we've had questions about this bullpen, and obviously we're going to know more as this spring training continues, but you feel a little bit more confident based on how effective all of them were, and you only need a couple of them to really stand out and make this roster.
Yeah, you'd say 3 spot, at least as currently constructed. And assuming Dosbel Hernandez is probably a lock, they kind of think they're talking about Dosbel Hernandez like he's going to be a high leverage guy. I mean, that's how high they're on.
I feel like he has to be.
Numbers wise, somebody's got to be. Whether it's there just has to be.
It seems like that was the plan.
Yeah, which is crazy because Aaron Bummer's pitched way more, Pierce Johnson's pitched way more, and they're like, well, this guy we just have the most confidence in. But as far as the, those final 3 spots, I mean, everybody's already off about the same start. Everybody's playing really well. Ronaldo Lopez said something yesterday. I kind of caught my eye that he wants to, Mark Bowman did a whole piece about it. He wants to be the first Braves pitcher to, I think, start like 30, 35 games, I think is what it was. And I don't know how many years to do that, or maybe ever. I don't know off the top of my head. That's a crazy kind of goal to have for a guy who we have real concerns about durability-wise, and for him to already be kind of being like, stamina-wise, I'm going into this season with the goal of making as many starts as humanly possible is great news. Also, one last thing, Ozuna could be quietly also an extension candidate. I know we have Drake Baldwin kind of waiting in the wings, could be a DH, but outside of Ohtani, I mean, Ozuna's the best DH in baseball.
Yeah, 79 homers over the last 2 years, 80 if you include yesterday's. No, just playing. But no, I mean, to go back to Ronaldo Lopez real quick, it's a very similar situation when we're talking about Spencer Strider. I mean, like, I know he's way older, but this was a guy that was a reliever for 5 years. That last year, yeah, we have fatigue concerns, and he experienced fatigue, but he could also come back stronger and not experience that fatigue because he finally has a full season of 25 starts under his belt. And now he's out there talking like, you can tell you're not making those comments if you're not feeling stronger 100%. Coming into the season. So it's another guy that, yeah, we all expect, maybe regression's going to hit. And yes, I don't think he's going to have a 1.99 ERA, especially if he's making 35 starts. That would be Cy Young. I mean, he'd win the Cy Young. It wouldn't even come close unless Paul Skeens goes out there and has a 1.5, which very well could happen as well. But it's another thing where we're all kind of expecting, we're nervous about the fatigue, but what if he gets stronger in his second year, just like Spencer Schwellenbach gets stronger in his second season in professional ball? So there are concerns, there's no doubt, but there's also so much to be excited about this rotation. And then we haven't even really mentioned Spencer Strider, who we might even see this spring training at some point, and looks like he's well on his way. So for all the concerns about this rotation, those 4 horses, the amount of explosiveness, all 4.
And Chris Sale was perfect in his little.
Those 4 guys right there, if they're healthy and right,
it gets.
I mean, those are 4 all-stars and multiple Cy Young candidates, maybe even 3.
Yeah. I mean, Spencer Schwellenbach, is floating around, preseason odds of like guys who could actually win the award. Like guys, he's at like plus, I want to say like around 2,000, I think. And I think it might be a little bit more than that. But I mean, This is a guy that Vegas already, kind of respects in that
I'll
manner.
tell you what, I guarantee you Spencer Schwellenbach has better odds this year than Chris Sale did last year.
100%.
I can absolutely guarantee you. Yeah, but I mean, it's what Schwellenbach did at the end of the last season was spectacular.
I mean, he had a sub-2 ERA against playoff teams the entire year.
And his last, outside of his first 4 starts, if you just go back, and I don't know how many starts he quite made off the top
12,
of my head.
Those outside of the ones,
I mean, he had
first
a
few.
2.5 ERA, and he was striking out 10 batters per 9, and he wasn't walking a single batter. And a lot of those games were like, we need you to go out there and stop the bleeding, because you're basically, you and Chris Sale are the guys that we got to win every time you're on the mound. And that guy delivered. I mean, what he did against the Mets was unbelievable in a must-win game. And then he did it 5 days before that in a critical game. So really excited for Schwellenbach, really excited for the top guys in these rotation. They've all looked really well early in spring training.